happy Monday. Thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox, and welcome to the work week. We are officially fully into June, and we are still feeling those spring-like storms, but now we're slowly adding in summer-like heat. So severe storms are incoming today. We just got our first severe thunderstorm warning just a few minutes ago. We also had a very major weekend, 6 major hailstorms since you last saw the forecast on Friday, so we'll talk about those storms. And then we have record heat building into the U.S., so we're going to take a look at what your summer will look like. Do we have a hot summer ahead of us? June, July, August? What do those temperatures look like? We'll have a look at that for you coming up at the very end of the forecast. But let's start first with those storms. Today, we have storms anywhere from the southern side of the U.S. along the Gulf Coast all the way through Texas and then out into New Mexico. Go up to our New England states and across the Midwest. We have another chance for storms from Michigan all the way out to places like New York and Pittsburgh. So a lot of people in that severe risk for today. Tomorrow, not as major of a risk, and then on Wednesday we shift back to the east and we go out along the northern Rockies, Iowa, and southern side of Texas. Now that's our risk for now, and we'll talk about the additional risks that go into that. That hail, wind, tornado, flooding, and heat risk are all on the docket, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But let's take a look at your weekend storm reports here. Let's start with Saturday, because we had a very, very busy weekend. Saturday started off pretty active, where we had storms across Arkansas, really a wind bag here. As they went through Memphis, we did have some really strong wind in here. Not a ton of hail reports, but the wind was definitely the big story on Saturday morning storms. A few tornado reports out there as well, but then our focus shifted back to Texas, and that is where we saw another Amarillo storm, another Lubbock storm as well. Lubbock has gotten hit just over and over and over. We also saw storms down in Texas as we headed into Sunday as well. Hey, one of the most interesting storms that we watched was this storm out in Aurora, which is just to the west of Chicago. We got some pretty good hail out of this, but it died before it actually got into Chicago itself. And then, of course, we were watching storms through Oklahoma yesterday, through that NBA Finals game. We were watching that tornado warning just to the west of Oklahoma City, where the Thunder and the Pacers were playing last night. And thankfully, those storms started to weaken before they came into the city itself. But after that, those storms continued to track down into the northern Texas and into Dallas, where it really was more of a windstorm than anything. So moving on, your hailstorm highlight here, going from most recent to Friday, so we're going from Sunday to Friday here. Yesterday, 3-star storm, anywhere from Midland to Big Spring, Texas. We saw tennis ball size hail here, about 72,000 homes impacted. So this was your Texas storm near Lubbock getting hit once again. There's that little storm out near Aurora, Illinois, just outside of Chicago, but you can see how fast this thing weakened as it got into Chicago itself. Moving on to your 3-star hailstorm that came into Canyon, Texas. So this is kind of halfway in between Amarillo and Lubbock, Texas. That was on Saturday, I think. Max hail size here, 2 inches, about 7,000 homes impacted. Going out to the west a little bit more, we've got some New Mexico storms in here in Hobbs, New Mexico. This was on Friday, and then we had a few others on Friday as well. One that I want to point out, okay, there's Lubbock getting hit again. Lubbock has just gotten hit over and over and over here. But I want to point out, yes, this storm out in Colorado. So usually we see storms on the east side of the Rockies. Pretty rare to get it up in the mountains itself, but Grand Junction also got a pretty good hailer in this area as well. This map had about 39,000 homes impacted. So if you are like, okay, we get it. There's been hail this weekend, right? Storm after storm after storm. Our meteorologists have been very busy. Well, we are looking to do that again today because we have a front that stretches across a good portion of the U.S., and that's going to initiate storms, if not already initiated, over the next few hours. Okay, so let's take a look at where those storms are right now, and I'm hoping that we can see that severe thunderstorm warning as well. Is it right there? Let me consult radar scope real quick. And while I do that, we do have so many areas impacted today, right? anywhere from New Mexico all the way up the East Coast and then up into our New England states. So while I do this, tell me where you guys are watching from today, because yeah, this is our warnings right here, just to the north of the Georgia-Florida state line here. But yeah, tell me where you guys are watching from today, because we're going to cover lots of cities here, and it may help to cover those cities if I know exactly where people are watching from. So are you watching from Houston? We'll talk about Houston more. If you're watching from Jacksonville, we'll talk about Jackson more. So tell me where you guys are watching from. Anyway, let me get some information on these severe thunderstorm warnings right here. Some small hail out of this, up to the size or even smaller than a quarter, and some high wind. So it's really warned for wind in this area, wind up to about 70 miles an hour. And I can see a lot of people jumping on telling us where they're watching from today. Will Southeast Michigan get hit with this hail forecast? It's definitely possible, but I do think that the hail is going to stay on the smaller side in Michigan. We're talking about quarters, maybe $50, but we'll talk about that here in just a minute. You guys are clear right now in Michigan. We've got some storms coming through Kentucky and Tennessee right now. The plains overall are pretty quiet at the moment. Hey, take a look at this low pressure system. Really well-defined low pressure system here. And then you can see on like the upslope side of this low pressure system, that's where all of the activity is. Pretty classic. All right, temperatures right now in the 80s here in Oklahoma, 70s up in Colorado. Oh, a very, very nice hiking day up there, maybe a little on the warm side. 81 down in Dallas, and yeah, a lot of us are going to be sweating today. Here's a look at those storms coming through Louisville right now. Bowling Green getting some modest rain right now, a moderate rain. But for the most part, our only warning is down in the northern side of Florida, southern side of Georgia. Now let's talk about that hail forecast. So to answer your question, up in Michigan today, are you guys going to see any hail? If you are in these like white, like milky looking colors right here, your hail is going to be small, okay? If you want that larger hail, you're going to have to get into these yellow, orange, maybe even some red colors in here. Where do we see that? We see that down in New Mexico and Texas. So we're talking about the west side of Texas here, maybe even down to the south, as far south as San Antonio and Houston. However, I really think it'll be more on the west side of Texas and New Mexico today. So let's kind of go through the hours here, looking at that hail forecast. Not very impressive off to the East Coast here, very similar to what we're seeing down in Georgia right now. I think it'll be more of a wind event, but we do have that tornado risk up to the north as well. So let's go through this. For Monday, June 9th, we're officially into June here. What are we talking about for our max hail size? Golf ball size hail. I'm not going anything bigger than that today. I just don't think that the models are impressive enough today. Largest hailstones, I'm going to go right in here, anywhere from Santa Fe down to Midland. Again, a low risk for San Antonio, a low risk for Houston, but you're on the board here. And then as we go into Columbia and Nashville, you're going to see some smaller hailstones in this area, right along West Virginia, the western side of North Carolina as well. Maybe you could get, just in this area, some larger hailstones, maybe up to ping pong ball size hail. And to answer your question about Michigan, again, I have those smaller hailstones, anywhere from a quarter all the way up to $50 size hail for your forecast today for Michigan. So there you go. There's a look at your hail forecast today. Alrighty, moving through here, getting to your wind forecast. Now, I don't know if you saw the radar on that hail forecast or not, but it did look like we could see some bowing line segments here out in places like Midland, Texas, maybe even across portions of the East Coast. So what I did here is I raised your wind threat for today. So your hail threat, while it may stay on the low side, that wind threat is going to be a lot more impactful today. So we're talking about high wind speeds right around 65 to 75 miles an hour. So on the upper end of this level 1 risk here. Amarillo, San Antonio, you guys are in the low risk for high wind today, but places like Midland and Lubbock, they're going to be a lot higher in that risk today for high wind today. I know we've talked about Lubbock a lot. We're going to see Lubbock get hit once again. Nashville, Pittsburgh, Michigan, all expected to have that higher wind risk for today. Alrighty, moving on to your tornado risk here. And while we get to your tornado risk, I do want to see other questions on here. We've got some Colorado questions. We've got Nebraska questions. Nebraska, you're in the clear for today. I don't see any storm issues for Nebraska today. Okay, now we're on to that tornado forecast. Here's your tornado forecast. We've got one area from Alexandria in southern Louisiana all the way down to the southern side of Mississippi and Alabama here, and then we've got Charleston all the way up to Pittsburgh. This is where our second area of a tornado risk is today. So we're talking about a level 1 on a scale of 5 risk. A few isolated tornadoes are absolutely possible with some of these storms as we head into the afternoon and evening hours. And speaking about that timeline, let's check out your timeline today. So your future radar shows storms popping up in New Mexico. And hey, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to start out to the west. We're going to go New Mexico, Texas, Gulf Coast, East Coast, and then up to the Midwest. Okay, that's where we're going to go because I told you we have a lot of places to cover today. So let's go back to the future radar here. Here's where we're seeing storms pop up this afternoon in New Mexico, anywhere from Albuquerque to Taos. Then we're going to see storms start to stretch to the east into the eastern side of New Mexico and into West Texas. That is through the evening hours. So it's dinner time, Amarillo, Lubbock, you're seeing the storms off in the distance. After dinner, that's when storms come into your area. And do you see this bowing segment here? There's your high wind. So high wind going south of Amarillo, but coming into places like Lubbock, Lenora, and Midland, Texas. This will continue through the late night hours tonight. So San Antonio, when are your storms coming in? Early tomorrow morning. We're talking about near your morning commute. Let's restart and let's talk about Houston all the way off to the Gulf Coast here. So once again, storms have fired already this afternoon. We're going to continue to see these mostly scattered. Storms continue with a pretty good wind risk, but a very, very low hail risk. Houston, your evening commute could be a wet one, so before you leave work today, make sure that you have your eyes on the forecast. Continuing up the East Coast here, because we will continue to see storms into early tomorrow morning. And let's go up the East Coast. Okay, there we go. Atlanta, we already have storms in your area right now. We're going to continue to see those storms as we head into the afternoon. Again, pretty scattered in this area. We're also going to have a line of storms that stretch anywhere from the western side of Tennessee all the way up to Kentucky. And then that's whenever we get into places like Ohio into the Midwest. Then we're going to continue to see those storms hang around, track to the east a little bit as we head into the evening hours tonight. But if you're on places like the western side of North Carolina all the way up to the Virginias, you can expect storms even into the late evening, early night hours, okay? And now finally, up into our New England states and our Midwest states. Right now, again, you're kind of in the middle of that line of storms that stretches from the western side of Tennessee, Kentucky, kind of splitting Ohio in half right here. These storms will intensify as we head into the afternoon hours, really pinpointing the Virginias and places like Pennsylvania for the biggest tornado threat, hail, and wind threat in this area. So I would say by the late afternoon, early evening hours, that's when we're expecting most storms in this area. Let me actually rewind this here and go back and talk about our Michigan storms, because I do know that we have some people watching from Michigan right now. So let's go back up. I'm going to show you this radar loop once again. You guys can find your areas, find the areas that you live or the areas that you work in, and you can see this radar loop once again. And here is Michigan. So let's talk about those storms in Michigan today. They're going to start out to the west and then slowly track into the central and eastern side of the state as we head into the afternoon hours. So starting off pretty isolated first, we've got a line of storms across the west side of the state, kind of splitting it in half by about 5 or 6 o'clock tonight, and then continuing to track to the east. I think the question originally was about southeastern Michigan, and that will be a late night storm after dinner, after the sun has gone down, and into the early morning hours. Now that is your risk for storms today. We talked about hail, high wind, and tornado threats. We also have a flood threat on the board for today. You can see those areas highlighted there in yellow. That is your level 2 flood threat. Tomorrow, very similar, mainly out in western Texas for that flood threat on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, we go into central Oklahoma and central Texas, including Oklahoma City, Dallas, and San Antonio. Now, what about that heat threat? Because we have another chance for some really warm temperatures. You know, we're getting into the summer months. We're seeing those temperatures slowly go up. Well, we're going to be above average in terms of temperatures as we head into the middle portion, the rest of June. So let's get to that here. Okay, there's your Tuesday storm risk, your Wednesday storm risk. Okay, here's your temperatures. So we're already warmer in some spots today compared to what we were yesterday. We're above average out to the Pacific Northwest. So this is the area of the country that we're expecting to break hot temperature heat records out in the western portion of the country. So we're expecting to break those heat records out to the Pacific Northwest all the way through this week and into early next week. You can tell that that heat just sticks around through the middle of the work week. Now moving on to June 14th through June 18th. So we're looking right to the middle of June. We are not getting rid of this heat anytime soon. We have a really good chance to stay above average for temperatures all the way through the middle of June here, mainly out to the Rockies, but kind of stretching into the northern plains as well. Even as far south, I mean, our Gulf states are also included in this risk of being above average as we head into the middle of June. But looking even farther than that now, we're looking through the entire summer. We still have a really good chance to be above average for those temperatures. That means that your normal temperature in July, in August, it's hot, right? We have a really good chance to be even hotter than that in all of those areas highlighted in this darker red color, which is most of the country, right? This stretches all the way out from the West Coast down into Texas, up into our New England states. So just prepare for a pretty warm summer. All right, thanks for joining us today. I think I got to most of your questions. Dustin is asking about San Antonio for tomorrow night. I would say San Antonio late tonight, early tomorrow morning. So make sure that you are watching that morning commute tomorrow morning on Tuesday morning. Thanks for joining us today. Thank you for your questions. I appreciate everyone hopping on here today. We do a weekday forecast every single day at noon. We like to kind of talk back and forth. So tell me where you're watching from, and we can answer those questions for you. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok because we post weather videos, we post forecasts there all the time. And give us a call if you're interested in any of those hail, wind, or tornado maps that our meteorologists mapped throughout the weekend or mapped today. We have meteorologists back in the Met room right now mapping storms that are happening right now. So if you're interested in one of those maps, give us a call at 855-334-4245 or email us at info@hailtrace.com or head over to our website, hailtrace.com. Alrighty, thanks for joining us on this Monday. We'll see you back here, same time, same place for your forecast tomorrow.